Hi, welcome back to Jobbertunity, and today we have a very special episode in store for you guys. Today we have Mr. Michael Effley, who is a formerly CEO, president, and general manager at a multinational organization. So today we're going to be asking him a few questions about his job. In the intro, it's pretty obvious that you had various different roles throughout your career. So can you briefly explain what your responsibilities were for each one?
Sure. I actually started my career in the Air Force, where I basically had two different jobs. The first job was estimating costs and schedules for all of these very large weapon systems that we build. And these are multi-billion dollar, multi-year projects. And so you got a lot of insight into how those were managed. And then I was fortunate enough to go to grad school. And from there, entered the business of building online software for small businesses. My first job was director of business development, doing partnerships for the company and lots of other different partners like eBay and Amazon and Google and a bunch of other large companies that everybody's heard of. And moved into a strategy role where I rolled out what was really one of the first SaaS businesses in the world and priced it in a usage and a subscription basis. And then ultimately ran all of operations for the company, and we sold that business in, it was 2010. And at that time, I took over as CEO of our company in the US that reported into Alibaba.com. And in that role, of course, you're responsible for the overall organization of the business, the strategy of the business, and really trying to put all the pieces together that allow every individual to contribute to the company and a team that provides the best services it can for the customers, the shareholders, and all the other stakeholders.
Thank you for that. So the next question I have, kind of leading off what you talked about earlier with your journey, and I was just wondering, what made you want to go into business and start a company like you did?
Interesting. So I think my journey is very similar to building a company in some way, where there's sort of these initial sparks when you're a kid or when you initially have an idea, and then everything is just incremental from there. My earliest memory of sort of being in business, frankly, was flipping goods on buses when I was in middle school and high school, where we'd get some pocket money for a trip and I would use it to buy canned goods and Twizzlers, and then I would resell them on the bus. And then I'd come back with all kinds of interesting things and more money than I left with. And then I moved from there to taking a college class. I think when I was about your age, actually, when I was a junior in high school, I took a college class at the local an intro to business class. My mom recommended that I take it. She had taken it before. She had never fully gotten a degree, but she took a lot of classes. And I was, frankly, doing really well in this college level class and decided that was going to be my major. And then as you sort of meet people along the way, you're looking, much like when you're building a business, you're looking for validating points where like you do something well and somebody says something kind about it. And you're like, wow, I might not be bad at this. I should try to do more.
So I feel like a lot of people, specifically considering your job as CEO, I think a lot of people have kind of like an idea of what is CEO, but it's not a very specific idea of the responsibilities and the daily tasks of a CEO. And I think people have an idea of what it is, but they don't really understand it. So could you just describe like what did an ordinary day look like for you at work as a CEO?
It's the end of that threw me a little bit because there are no ordinary days as a CEO. I think you're responsible for so many things. So you sit essentially in between some level of a group, and this isn't true if you're the owner of the business, then you sort of are a little bit more in your own world. But I think if you sit in between a board of directors and a set of employees who are responsible for delivering value to a group of consumers or stakeholders, then you are in a position where you're constantly seeking inputs to try and make the best decisions you can every single day. But those decisions are on a wide variety of different topics. It could be finance one day, it could be organizational design the next day, it could be a very strategic 3 to 5 year plan where you want to take the business. And so overall, I would say the CEO is responsible for looking at all of the the landscape in the world. Where do you want to see the organization you lead fit into that? And then building an organization of talented individuals and continuing to build their talents so that they can provide that value to those stakeholders, which sounds like not super complex in its sort of overall, well, you just do all these things. But when you think about all the personalities involved, all the options in every single day that come at you, I think it ends up being a bit overwhelming at times.
Could you give us some insight? And what is one thing that people assume about your job that is not true?
That you get to make all the decisions and you just have ultimate control over what happens with the organization. You are literally taking in so many other pieces of feedback, whether it's your board of directors, who does have the ability to remove you as CEO if they don't think you're doing a great job. Mm-hmm. But in more so, you're constantly responding to what the customer needs. So you may sort of have this illusion of control, but honestly, it doesn't really exist like that.
Wow, thank you for that insight. I did not know that before, so thank you for that.
Totally true.
Yeah. So the next question I have is, a lot of people that do watch these videos ask for certain things for us to ask the people we interview. And one thing they're curious about is kind of like the pros and then the cons to the job that you have. So could you describe what is the most difficult aspect of your job? And then on the flip side, what is the most rewarding part?
So the most difficult aspect is that it is probably the most, I would consider it one of the most lonely jobs in the world, frankly, in that you have a lot of people around you and you're constantly chatting with a lot of people, but ultimately, you don't necessarily have peers within the organization. And so that's definitely a thing that I would say to anybody that wants the job of CEO and has always wanted it, is that don't misunderstand it and know that it's a pretty lonely job a lot of days. Now, that said, there really is no feeling like bringing a team together around an idea, particularly if it's one that you've had out of whole cloth, like literally that you thought, this problem has not been solved well enough. I think I have a solution to it and I can't do it alone. And nobody can do it alone. So now I need to build a team, energize that team, and build a strategy to execute a solution to your problems. And there's just no substitute for the energy that sits behind that.
Could you help our viewers a little bit and just describe what are the qualities that you think are required for someone to be in the same position as you?
There's a lot of different qualities. I think people think of qualities like intelligence and education and those types of elements. But I look at it a little more inwardly, and I think ultimately any job of leadership, of running a company or organization, is a ton of salesmanship. And so I think the thing that whether I had as much of it as I needed or taking myself outside of it, when I see successful CEOs, successful entrepreneurs, people who are building organizations, they generally have the ability to inspire others. It's essentially largely a sales job. You are constantly selling the vision that you have, both internally and externally.
Well, thank you for that. I don't want to take up too much of your time. I know you're a very busy person. So we're going to wrap it up with this final question. For those that are interested in what you do, what do you recommend are the best steps for them to take to get to where you are today?
Well, I think in general, irrespective of what your chosen path is, if there's something that you think you want to do as an individual, if you see somebody that is doing not necessarily what I do, but anything, but certainly what I do, is the first thing you do is go seek out as many of the people doing that you can. Some may be doing it well, some maybe not, but shadow them, talk to them, ask them questions. What is your day? All the questions you're asking, which is amazing, by the way, this whole thing is amazing that you're doing, is literally like, talk to them, listen to them, find interviews of them and say, is that really what I want to do? And then I think also be a little introspective about what does it mean to do that job, and is that a path that I want to embark upon? If you want to talk about very specifically larger organizations, those that you can read in the news and be a leader in those organizations, there is no greater power to getting those opportunities or to being successful in those opportunities than networking extensively with other like-minded and maybe not like-minded people.
Well, thank you, Mike, and thank you so much for this incredible interview. What an amazing way to cap it off. So on behalf of Job Opportunity, I would just like to thank you for coming on here today and sharing your knowledge with us. There is no one better to learn about business from than someone like you who has been through it all and actually has been at the top as a CEO. And you gave so much amazing advice, and we are so grateful that you're able to join us today. So thank you so much, Mr. Effley.
Thank you so much, Noah. I appreciate it.
And thank you also to all the viewers watching, and we will see you guys next time. Bye.